Mbali Ntuli says she wants to show patriotic South Africans how to take back their country. The former DA member has launched an initiative called the Groundwork Collective. She says she will work with community leaders across the country to bring change. Well, it's joining us now in studio to tell us all about the GWC, Groundwork Collective. You are a politician. That's how I know you, Mbali. Good afternoon. Welcome to today. You are a politician. What's the difference between a collective and a party?
Well, certainly we have no ambitions as the Groundwork Collective to stand for any election. We've made it very clear that it's an NPC. And in fact, when I resigned last year, I was adamant that I wouldn't be joining a political party. I wouldn't be starting a political party because I think we can all see there's an oversupply of politicians that go that route. And I think that there are far too few of us who have had the skills and the expertise of being partly in politics and campaigning and fundraising, who then take this back into communities. And so when I left a year ago, that's what I said I was going to do. That's what I have been doing. And I'm very excited to launch this now so that I can get more South Africans and communities to know that we are available, we are here to help them. And that's my contribution back to still serving the country.
So what, in your experience in politics, will stand you in good state going forward with GWC?
Like I say, I think that I have the skills of how the country actually works, and one of our pillars is around civic education, and other pillars around food production, because when I was in Kanyawute and other places that I've worked, I saw that people were incredibly food insecure, starving, I would even say. And then also in terms of skills development, I have a lot of networks that I've built up over the last 2 decades. I think if you compare myself to the average person, I might be able to open doors that they can't, and I want to make sure that we are taking those people with us on this journey.
You know, I listen to you and I'm wondering, there's so many young people like yourselves who've been part of the DA and other parties for some time now. Like you now, you're doing this community work that you want to do. Shouldn't you have started here before you went into politics? What do you think? Or do you think you didn't lose anything?
I was doing community work even before I was in politics, and throughout politics. I haven't only been doing things that were in the political space. But by nature, I think I am a political animal. And so even now when I do work, I think it has to be political, even if it's not partisan. And that's because I don't think anyone in South Africa can afford to fold their arms and say that they don't care about the politics of our country. The more we say that, the more we allow them impunity.
You don't have to belong to a party to be political.
And people are patriotic enough in this country that I think if you can show them how they can actively get involved, we're able to solve our own problems.
You've done quite a lot of work. I mean, reading your statement that was issued earlier to the media, it's got lots of detail. You've done a lot of research, you've done a lot of work, you've got some support from different quarters. So what's next?
So we're very excited. Next week we're going to be unveiling a very big public project in Durban. Next week. This is why we've also launched this week to tell you what Groundwork Collective is about, because when we launch our project next week, it's going to basically go full scale from then. So we wanted to make sure that people understood all our different pillars before we do.
What is the focus of the pillars? Just tell our viewers.
So as I said, there's food production and ensuring that we are giving skills to people to be able to feed themselves. A lot of young people particularly have to make the choice between eating and finding jobs. We want to take that out of the equation, but also for schools and creches and actually giving people the skills to be able to upscale that work.
I mean, just yesterday, our colleague Mbali Ntuli in KwaZulu-Natal was telling us about many schools did not receive food, and they depend on that daily meal.
Every day when I was on the education committee, this was the same issue that we kept having. I don't even care about that anymore. We will go there directly. We will show them how to do it. We've got enough people that are willing to help, and we can basically take away that kind of problem.
And you mentioned civic education. That's going to be important, especially ahead of next year's general elections.
It is, and with the president signing the electoral amendment bill, if nothing happens to change what he's signed into law now, we're going to have to go through a whole entire process of explaining to people how now independent candidates would be able to stand. But aside from that, I think what you have in a country like ours is a lot of voter education where people know how to vote, where to put the X.
Which is what the IEC does a lot.
And good for them. And this is why we also want to help them, and we are working with them. Well, you really need a civic education, telling people how the political system party works, how the political ecosystem works. How do you get something out of...
How do you get hold of a councillor?
How do you get hold of a councillor? How do you use the UIP? How do you take yourself to a standing committee? Do you know when your council meetings are? Do you know when your legislative meetings? What can you do aside from voting every 5 years to actually make political parties and political players accountable to you as the individual in South Africa? People don't know that. Really smart people don't know that. They don't know how to use the legislation to work for them, and that's where
the political life will stand in your good stead.
It will.
Ahead of this, are you focusing on a particular target audience, or is this to any and all South Africans across ages?
I think the median age being 27 shows us that the huge amount of people who are part of the electorate who are not eligible to vote, who are eligible to vote but have not registered, and who make up a sizable portion of being able to swing things in this country are young people.
And also they suffer most in terms of unemployment.
Exactly, and what research shows is that young people aren't apathetic, they just haven't found out how exactly to connect with the political entities or the political structures that can make some kind of difference for them. And political parties aren't going to be what's going to solve this particular crisis.
They're not going to be able to solve this political crisis. What about transparency? I mean, as an NPC, it's going to be hard to raise funds. It's not easy. Non-profit company, but you've got some starting support. That's the message I'm getting here. And you're thanking so many different people. Some of them are not named. What's GWC's plan in terms of raising funds? You're announcing a new big project. You're unveiling it next week.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get the funds from?
So luckily, as I said, the last year, we've been working. I mean, I know people think on Twitter I've just been chilling, but it's important to not let people always see what you're doing.
So not everything you read on Twitter is true.
Well, we've seen that with Nandip on Instagram for sure. But we've really been working on getting institutional donors, funders, high...
and the response has been positive?
It has been, because I think people really realize that if we don't get a certain cohort of people who have no historic allegiance politically to start opting into the system of voting, we're going to lose them, and they're going to continue to be people that go by age group at being out of the political system. So people understand the importance of what we have to do. And I think it shows in every other country, whether it's in America with what happened with Georgia or Zambia, our sister country just up there. If you don't have the civic education portion being part of what voter education is, you may as well just keep replicating the same system, because people don't know how to change it for themselves. And so if you want South Africa to change, you have to support initiatives like my one, and the ones that are also coming on board with us, many of them civil society organizations that already exist that we've got into us, which we'll unveil next week.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to wear that non-partisan band. Coming from the DA, you were there for, I don't know, you were in the MPL in KZN for quite some time. And as you said, you were involved in rural areas like Mkhanyagude, the constituency. It's going to be very hard for GWC, with you at the helm, to really wave that non-partisan flag. How are you going to approach if it pops? I mean, because people will be throwing all sorts of things at you.
I don't think anyone's going to accuse me of still being part of the DA, given the history that I have with the DA. But I've been in politics, so I've got people that I know and I'm friendly with in all political parties. Every time I take a picture with Herman, I'm actually in SA, or if I take a picture with someone like Sungezo, I'll be on Rise, or if I'm taking a picture with someone like Vianney, I'll be in the EFF. And so that's not something that I can get away from. But for me, it's something that I use to my advantage. And if political parties are smart, they should be supporting the work that I'm doing, because it actually increases the ability to them to potentially have more voters. But more importantly, this is why we also reached out to the IEC. We reached out to partners that are not political.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbali, and we wish you well with the Ground Worker Collective, and we'll be bringing you more news shortly. Stay with us.